afternoon, and thank you to everybody who's joined our webinar. Just before we start with the main presentation, I'd just like to quickly remind you you can share your feedback and engage with the Hayes Salary Survey Guide conversation on our social media. Simply follow us on Twitter, which is @HayesNews, or connect with us on Facebook or LinkedIn, and we can use the hashtag Hayes Salary Guide. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Claire Kemsley. I'm the Managing Director for Hayes Marketing. Welcome to our webinar, and thank you for joining us today. I'm delighted to launch the latest Salary Survey Guide. By way of a brief introduction, I've worked for Hayes for over 30 years, and I'm actually mainly responsible for the marketing specialism. We're joined today by John Gerlis, who is CIPR's Senior Policy Officer, and he leads on the Institute's policy work, advising its 10,000 members on matters such as diversity, gender, pay, Brexit, lucky you John, and copyright. And John today will be talking through public relations, the profession as it stands today in 2018, and what it looks like going forward. And after both of our presentations, we'd be delighted to take any questions from you that you may have. Just a reminder that you can type a question at any time during the webinar, and we'll spend a few minutes, as I say, at the end having a look at some of those questions. This is the 5th year we've produced our UK guide, covering 12 specialist skilled and technical areas, and it's supported by our regional salary survey data for most roles. It's based on salary information provided by just under 2,000 recruiting experts from 93 UK offices. As well as using our own extensive insights to inform the guide, we also launched a survey designed to ascertain employee satisfaction and the employer's concerns, and to try and gather general insight into the marketplace. This year, this secured almost 23,000 responses from employers and employees, of which over 900 came from the marketing profession itself. Just to recap of last year's findings, to start, let's set the scene by having a look at what we talked about last year. In 2017, 59% of organisations expected their business activity to increase. 71% said they were planning to recruit, and there was about a 1.8% average salary increase. 55% of those employees that we spoke to were considering moving jobs in the coming 12 months. This year, against a backdrop of continued economic and political uncertainty, hiring plans, which I have to say are the highest since our survey began 5 years ago, are under threat, mainly due to skills shortages and an increasingly competitive labour market. So let's take a look at what our survey results showed in a little bit more detail. Let's start with some positives. We all need some positives. Although there's obviously ongoing uncertainty, employers' business outlook remains robust, and employers are optimistic about the market and their business. There's been an increase in the number of employers predicting growth. 62% of UK employers overall forecast an increase to business activity levels in 2016, pre-EU referendum, 57% immediately following the referendum, and 59% last year, but 61% this year. And, consistent with last year, only 5% of UK employers expect a decrease in activity. This is all good news, and shows that employers are optimistic about business activity in spite of continued political and economic uncertainty, particularly surrounding the outcome of Brexit, and obviously this week's a pretty important week for that. This optimism suggests organisations remain focused on the opportunities ahead, regardless of wider market uncertainty. Looking specifically at marketing, we can see that employers are more optimistic than the UK average, with 69% predicting an increase in activity levels compared to the national average of 61%. There is also an increase on the previous year's figure, which stood at 62%. This optimism is also translating into increased hiring plans, with employers continuing to invest in their recruitment and their talent management strategies. Recruitment clearly remains a priority for employers. 76% say they plan to hire in the next 12 months. In fact, this is the highest percentage we have recorded in the 5 years of producing this actual report. When looking at the recruitment plans of marketing employers only, this figure is roughly on a par with the national average, circa 73%, plan to hire or recruit staff over the next year. This is also an increase on last year, when 69% of marketing employers said they had plans to recruit. So that's really quite an interesting statistic for us, that actually marketing employers are planning to recruit more people this year than they did last year. And we are seeing that in particular sectors, which we can talk about at the end. Of those marketing employers looking to hire, 57 state they plan to hire permanent staff, roughly on a par with last year, while 32% plan to hire temporary, contract and interim, which is 7% more than last year. So there is a marked increase in those marketing employees looking to take on temporary, contract or interim members in the marketing teams this year. Despite this positive business activity and hiring outlook, employers are faced with huge recruitment challenges. Employers are in agreement that the talent market is at its most competitive for some time. A staggering percentage of employers say they experienced skills shortages in the last year, 92%. This is roughly on a par with the sentiments of marketing employers, 93% of whom say they've experienced skills shortages in the past year alone. Furthermore, 8% of marketing employers experienced difficulty hiring permanent staff, and 59% reported challenges hiring temp or contract. I think what we can tell from these statistics is quite a challenging marketplace to recruit, particularly for skill sets that are in high demand and short supply. Marketing employers also expressed increased concern about competition from other employers. It was 49% this year, a considerable increase from 34% last year. These hiring challenges look set to continue. 61% of marketing employers expect to experience a shortage of suitable applicants when recruiting over the next 12 months. The importance of effective recruitment and retention plans is apparent, as 37% of employers do not believe they have the talent needed to achieve current business objectives, which is an increase again from the previous year of 31%. The consequence of these ongoing skills shortages is being felt in employee morale and workplace productivity. Over a third reported that skills shortages had a negative impact on employee morale. Over half of marketing employers say skills shortages have had a negative impact on productivity in their organisation, which is on a par with the UK overall of about 49%. And 40% also reported a negative impact on innovation and creativity, and a further 39% say skills shortages are adversely affecting their ability to deliver projects. The result of this competitive environment and urgent need to address the skills gap is a continued pressure on employers to boost salary. In the past year alone, marketing employers increased salaries at a greater rate than they predicted. 70% increased salaries in the last 12 months, higher than the 63% who expected to when we talked to them last year. But that is still slightly lower than the national average of 73%. The overall average increase in salaries for the UK is 1.9%, but in areas of increased skills shortages, pay rises have been much higher. As a quick point of comparison, those areas which have seen the highest salary increase over the last year are legal, construction and property, which both have an average salary increase of 2.7%, and HR, which has seen an increase, on average, of 2.1%. Therefore, the overall increase in salaries for marketing is slightly lower than the average, at 1.3%. But as I say, if we dig deeper into some of the skills shortages that we are aware of, data analytics, change transformation programs, great video content, all of these particular skill sets will have a higher price attached to them. Pay rises were also larger than anticipated. 29% of marketing employers increased salaries by over 2.5%, compared to just 16% who planned to. And that was in a directly view of the shortage of these particular skills shortages. It's quite interesting to look at the regional hotspots for marketing salary increases. Their highest were in the South East, Scotland and the Midlands. Insight, general marketing and online and digital marketing saw the highest rises of any disciplines. The rise in these clients seeking robust all-round marketing knowledge is very apparent from candidates that talk to us and clients that look to interview. At the end of the day, those candidates that can understand the marketing process from end to end, the process that creates a great experience every time for every consumer, are in really short supply. We have had a short supply of insight and data marketing skill sets for a couple of years, but it's been more apparent this year that the general marketing skill set from end to end is really, really important and very difficult to find. As you can see, certain roles saw very notable increases in salaries, particularly those with customer insight skills, including customer insight managers, heads of marketing, and customer insight analysis. The result of these salary increases has been a higher level of salary satisfaction among marketing employees. 64% said they're happy with their salary, compared to only 44% last year. However, salary satisfaction isn't what it's all about. Despite higher pay rises than expected and greater salary satisfaction, salary remains the biggest motivator for employees to change jobs. Employees' intentions to change jobs remain consistent with last year, as over half of UK employers say they are expected to move within 12 months. Looking back at these 12 months, 44% of marketing professionals said they have moved on the last year, and an additional 43% considered it. This shows an openness to move from candidates and a total talent pool of 87%, active and passive, that can be harnessed by employers to address their talent challenges. Of the 43% of marketing professionals who say they moved role in the last year, the most common reason given, 27%, nearly a third, was because their salary was too low. But other reasons included a lack of career progression, which was nearly a quarter, 24%, and a poor fit with their managers and a cultural challenge at about 22%. Among those who do not currently intend to move roles this year, 38% admit a better salary and benefit package could tempt them to change jobs. These are what we call passive candidates. May not be actively looking, but if the right role came along with the right remuneration package, they could be tempted. While the importance of effective talent attraction is apparent, so too are retention strategies. Existing employees have demands. For example, employee movement due to salaries may be fueled by a mismatch in understanding and expectations around pay. While 87% of marketing employees have said it's important that their organisation is transparent about how pay levels and pay rises are set, only 37% feel this really is currently the case in their own organisation. Another key driver of employee movement this year is likely to be around career prospects. Over half of marketing employees feel uncertain or negative about their career prospects in their current organisation, and actually that's a 6% increase year on year, which is quite high. In fact, after salary, career progression is one of the main reasons employees are planning to actually move jobs. Employers continue to underestimate the appeal of offering a positive work-life balance to prospective employees, and the value this can have as a tactic in competing for talent. Only 22% of marketing employers think work-life balance is important to attract staff, while 38% of professionals prioritise this when considering a new role. The number of marketing employees rating their work-life balance as very poor to average has risen 6% from last year to 38%, indicating clear potential for employers to appeal to those seeking a more positive balance. The main request to improve work-life balance was a change in working hours at 41%, including adopting a flexible working pattern. While employers may be concerned about the impact of changing working hours when already struggling with staff shortages, offering and promoting these options is a valuable aid to attraction and retention. Benefits that aid work-life balance, such as a generous holiday entitlement, are also attractive alongside flexible working hours. In what has been a whistle-stop tour of some of our key survey findings, I'll take just a few moments now to summarise the key findings of our report that we can further debate with you when we come and visit you and bring a copy of the Salary Survey Guide. First, we have seen that despite the wider uncertainty caused by the ongoing Brexit negotiations, employer confidence in activity for the year ahead remains positive. As a result, recruitment remains a top priority for most organisations, reaching the highest level since our survey began 5 years ago. However, continued skills shortages exacerbated by increased competition from other employers look set to be the key challenges in the year ahead. These challenges may impact negatively on employee morale and productivity. Salaries are on the rise, but employers are still tempted to move roles for a higher salary and benefits package. It is clear there's a significant active and passive talent pool which employers can engage with, but they need to offer the right salary and benefits package, as well as a positive work-life balance and clear career perspectives. Standing out is essential in today's market. While employers may want to look to the same handful of companies as their competition for staff, employees today are juggling multiple options, whether that's freelance work or self-employment. promising startups in emerging sectors, or global opportunities. Employers need to be on the front foot and lead with a strong offer of salary and career potential. And a seamless applicant experience is crucial if they want to attract the best candidate in today's market. Last year, 44% of marketing candidates moved roles, and another 43% considered it, showing a real openness from candidates to move roles for the right offer. Being clear about what makes you stand out as an employer, from salary and benefits to flexible working options, will help you appeal to candidates waiting for the perfect opportunity to move. They may be sport for choice in today's marketplace. As 93% of marketing employers have experienced skill shortages, and a further 61% said a top recruitment challenge is a shortage of suitable candidates, employers will need more creative approaches to tackling these difficulties. Under a fifth of employers experiencing skill shortage have responded by increasing training budgets, a slight decrease from last year, suggesting that there is more employers can do to address their immediate skills gaps with greater investment in training in-house. Also, hiring for potential rather than just current experience and investing in internal development programs would not only address skills gaps, but actually help mitigate the negative impact on employee morale associated with staff shortages. Bearing in mind 34% of marketing employers say they've experienced this. By providing the career development opportunities employers are seeking, you may actually attract more passive and unique candidates to your organisation. As skill shortages intensify, looking for talent in the same place every time is no longer a reliable strategy. Employers can widen their talent pool by looking at different sources that pertain to diverse populations of talent, in addition to assessing their full application and journey for inclusiveness. Online application processes that reinforce internal biases can result in loss of good quality candidates. From ensuring recruitment materials portray an organisation's commitment to diversity and inclusion, to implementing recruitment campaigns that attract talent from traditionally underrepresented groups to be competitive in today's marketplace, employers must review their attraction strategy through a diversity and inclusive lens. I'd now be delighted to introduce John to our conversation and talk you through the profession, CIPR, some of the research they've also done, interestingly, in not only in salary surveys, but actually in the gender pay gap as well. So, John, I'd like to hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Hello, everyone. As Claire mentioned, I'm the Senior Policy Officer at the CIPR. My work involves looking after a lot of our policy areas, which we'll go over shortly. That does include Brexit. For those who don't know, we just heard that the meaningful vote has been cancelled tomorrow, if that's of interest to anybody, but that's perhaps another presentation for another time. Very encouraging to hear some of the findings and statistics from Claire there, some of which may actually be reflected in the public relations work and the surveys that we've done. So each year the CIPR conducts a survey of the profession, the people that work in public relations, and that goes beyond our 10,000 members and is global as well. This year's survey is actually in the field. It's shortly closing this week, but the results will be published in early 2019. So much of the following information comes from the 2017-2018 survey. Now, I'm just going to switch slides. There we are. So the survey provides us with data and information from those currently practicing PR. So from last year's survey, we learned that the profession is growing. We estimate there are around 71,000 practitioners currently practicing public relations in the UK. That's up by 22% over 4 years. It's a trend that we're seeing both in agency work, in-house practitioners as well, and also those that are, of course, being independent practitioners, so working for themselves as public relations consultants. There are a number of challenges facing the profession. The largest identified by those practicing public relations is the underrepresentation at board level. Other challenges include the changing digital and social landscape, the expanding skill set required, and the emergence of fake news. When we look at what practitioners do compared to what those responsible for recruiting want, it's quite interesting actually that we see there's a rather sort of a similar match in what those who are practicing at a junior level are doing and what is required. So they're often engaged in more tactical elements. Having said that, at the more senior positions, there is quite a big gap between what recruiters what people recruiting for roles are looking for, and what senior practitioners are doing. So actually what we find is senior practitioners are actually engaged in quite a lot of tactical activity as well. So for example, copywriting and editing, and whereas actually what is probably required is a more strategic approach and a bit more of a sort of managerial discipline as well. PR does have a diversity problem. The vast majority of practitioners believe that more diverse teams deliver better results. So you can imagine if you're talking to the public about products or particular campaigns, it's useful to have a member, staff is actually reflective of your publics. Unfortunately, however, the profession is still very largely white, about 96%. Women make up a greater proportion of the profession, however. And there was also a 10% rise in practitioners identifying as having mental health concerns. Now, this could be due to mental health issues being more widely discussed in society, people feeling a bit more confident to identify as having mental health issues, but in itself, it's worrying. This year's survey, which I say is closing this week, is exploring those issues further. So I think Claire mentioned the work-life balance issue, and some of that we're looking at as well to see if it's reflective of the wider sort of UK trends, or if it is an issue that we're experiencing in public relations and of course in marketing as well. When we look specifically at salaries, what we can see is that actually those who have become chartered via the CIPR have the highest average income. In-house professionals in the private sector earn more than in-house professionals in the public sector, and agency professionals and consultants and independent practitioners as well. It's perhaps no surprise that those based in London, the South East, and perhaps surprisingly the Channel Islands earn more on average compared to Northern Ireland and the East Midlands, for example. But encouragingly, and again reflective perhaps of what Claire said in her presentation, salaries are going up, and they are up by an average of about £1,000 for full-time workers. Now, when we look at recruitment in a bit more detail, we can see that this too, like salaries, grew last year. It's a trend that's been consistent for the last decade. And I think really this highlights the importance that organisations are putting on public relations, and as the previous presentation showed as well on marketing. And I think, as Claire mentioned, the economic and political uncertainty that we're facing perhaps puts quite a significant importance on organisations reaching out and going beyond perhaps their traditional routes and reaching out to wider audiences. And perhaps that's why we're seeing the growth that we're seeing now. Public relations is still a relatively new profession, if you like, and as we become a bit more disciplined and a bit more understood as a profession, that probably sees some of the growth as well. Obviously, the reputation and connecting with the public is something that public relations does very well. It's perhaps no surprise that older practitioners, those with more experience, earn more money than they do if you're younger. That is true until you get to around 65, when, of course, you can sort of expect practitioners to go perhaps part-time or reduce the amount of work they do. And encouragingly, salaries are above the national average. Now, as the marketing presentation showed, the geographic area can obviously influence the salary of a practitioner as well. Certainly, as you can see, the majority of practitioners and agencies are based in London, so it's perhaps no surprise that we're seeing a bit of an increase there. Now, salary by role, earning potential is high. Directors are earning an average of around £80,000. However, to get to that stage, there are a number of lower paid hurdles to navigate through throughout a career. So from assistant executive roles all the way through to manager and via officer roles, as you can see there. So the starting salary for an intern or a trainee is fairly low, but it can rise quite rapidly. Now, experience by age is one factor which influences, but actually more relevant is perhaps the experience that you have within the profession. So the more experience that you have, the more potential you have to earn. Similarly, a professional qualification or even chartership, as mentioned previously, often can equate to higher earning potential as well, as you can see there. So the top of those shows the income based on the number of years spent, and the bottom based on the qualifications that practitioners do. Now, as Claire mentioned, we do have a gender pay gap in public relations of around £10,000. That's after the regression analysis is done. Once that's done, it comes down to around £7,000. But considering 58% of the profession is female, it is disappointing, and it's an area that we're doing quite a lot of work in at the moment, working with our members and the organisations that we work with to try and address this. It's obviously a very sort of hot topic at the moment, with gender pay reporting becoming legislation for certain organisations. So it's something that is obviously being addressed at a more national and a more political level. But as a profession who have organisations largely with employee bases of under 200, which is the reporting threshold, it's something that we know we need to take quite seriously and look at addressing, especially, as I say, with the majority of practitioners actually being female. And actually, the gender pay gap, we can see widens with experience. It slightly reduces after 21 years of practice. There's quite a significant amount of experience required in order to get to a sort of level playing field. So what does this mean for the profession going forward? This is a screenshot that I took from the BBC News homepage the other day. And as you can see, two of the main stories there sort of highlight reputation as a sort of key issue there. And what that means is that actually reputation for businesses is still an incredibly important, or perhaps even increasingly important issue. And what we're finding is that is probably reflective of the growth that we're seeing in public relations at the moment. It's a very hot topic, and people are slowly beginning to understand how reputation can affect things like bottom line. We can't ignore, of course, as I mentioned earlier on, the uncertainty that does come with the political uncertainty and economic uncertainty that Brexit brings. There are opportunities that come with this, however. The CIPR believe that Brexit could be seen as an opportunity for the profession to demonstrate strategic leadership within organisations or with clients as they navigate new ways of working, and in fact even looking to sort of navigate through new markets as well. In a situation characterised by a unique level of uncertainty, volatility, complexity, ambiguity, organisations must find a new level of resilience. They must be both receptive and communicative. They must be led by flexible, highly skilled public relations professionals with a depth of knowledge and experience to respond effectively to change. Now, strategic public relations can help an organisation come to terms with the complexities of Brexit, help it prepare, help it to take a lead amongst its stakeholder communities. So Brexit's really an opportunity here for public relations to sort of show its value within an organisation, to help guide an organisation through these difficult times. And as I say, encouragingly, despite the fact that there is some uncertainty certainly going on, across the country in all sorts of professions, public relations does at the moment seem to be largely immune to that. There is still, a good growth in terms of salaries, but also in terms of recruitment as well. Now, I appreciate this slide may be a little bit tricky to see, but we're looking at the changing nature of the profession here. So this, as I alluded to earlier, actually, the number of practitioners spending their time on tactical public relations, so things like copywriting, media relations, social media management, is an area that one of our, a group of ours, the AI in PR panel, which you can find details of on our website, have looked into. And they've looked into the emerging nature of artificial intelligence on public relations. So what you see on this slide is that the graph to the left shows in red and orange what artificial intelligence does or could do right now. So this is the circle there is what a public relations practitioner will spend most of their time doing. Right now, the red is what artificial intelligence currently is able to do. The orange is what it can do but is not largely employed. The green and the white is largely safe for artificial intelligence, certainly for now. Now, if you look to the right-hand side of the slide, what you see is that changes quite significantly just in 5 years, and that graph that's sort of a bit orange and a bit green largely turns red. What that means is that much of what public relations do now, and that's both at a junior and a senior level, which is engaging in tactical public relations, is very easily done by artificial intelligence. What that means is that public relations professionals or those looking to enter the profession will need to expand their skill set. And there are a number of different ways in which to do that. And of course, the CIPR offer a range of training courses that people can attend, but also a number of different resources on the website, some of which are exclusive to members, many of which are open to everybody. So a largely positive outlook. It has to be said there is a degree of uncertainty, but if we look long term, especially at the sort of emerging technologies that we're seeing, there are some concerns and risks that perhaps go with the profession and certainly points to a sort of changing profession. So the here and now is perhaps good, but a caveat that it's important to keep an eye on maintaining your continued professional development and looking to engage with the current skills and disciplines that are involved in being a public relations practitioner. Thank you very much. For more information, obviously, you can please visit the CIPR website, which is there.
John, thank you very much. I think it's very interesting, actually, this conversation that I'm having with lots of clients and candidates around the constant need for marketing and comms professionals to keep up to date with their skill sets. Obviously, that's driven by technology at the moment, but I think the whole way that we embrace the relationship with consumers due to social media is changing. I think the need to find and engage with your consumers as opposed to them just arriving at your proverbial door isn't the way of the world anymore. So I think the whole way that PR and actually marketing itself is going to shift over the next 5 to 10 years will be fascinating. If we all believe that if you were born in 2007, I think the chap who wrote the 100-Year Life book said you're likely to work for 65 years, then I can imagine that actually the careers that the future marketing, comms, PR individuals have will actually be changing and challenging for them for a very long time. What I would like to do is open up the floor to questions, and I have a couple here already. If I'll take the first question, John, and then there's another question here for you. So if I take the first question, do you expect salaries to continue to rise next year? Well, I think despite the ongoing marketing uncertainty, which we've discussed, heavily related to Brexit, I guess, at the moment, our survey did indicate that 71% of marketing employers actually still plan to raise their salaries in the year ahead. The skills shortage, obviously, continues to be prevalent. And I think it's inevitable that salaries will continue to rise in the most in-demand roles, as we talked about earlier, customer insight managers, analytics, and probably as businesses continue to attract the best talent to achieve their organisation's objectives, then there will be a price to some of these premium skill sets. However, as we did discuss, salary really isn't the only important factor for potential candidates. This whole career progression, talking about what you were saying, John, the need to keep upskilling yourself, to keep up to date with technologies, and also the factors that this work-life balance piece. I mean, last year we did a piece of work called What Workers Want, where actually 71% of marketing professionals said they take up to a 10% pay cut for a better culture. And in fact, in our What Workers Response research this year showed us it came out just before the salary survey guide, in fact, so that actually up to 50 to 60% of candidates won't even apply to a company online if they can't see what their well-being policies are and if they can't actually easily identify the brand values. So there's quite a lot of work around this need to be open and transparent and authentic with what we are as a brand to even attract the talent to consider even then applying to the roles that we have. So yes, do I expect salaries to continue to rise? Yes, I think we do from what our clients and candidates have told us. But equally, I think there's a lot more to this remuneration and to this attraction that candidates have to an employer outside of that rise in salary. So, John, there's another question here. John, what can employers do if we're not able to increase salaries, which is often the case? We often encounter candidates with much higher salary requests than we can match. John, what would your thoughts be on that question?
Yeah, thanks very much, Claire. I think that was very good advice that you gave initially, and some of my answer here will probably reflect some of what you said. But I think for organisations that are finding that, it's certainly looking beyond just the mere salaries as well. It's the overall offering to candidates, not just the financial elements. You know, I think it's important to recognise that all recruits, but certainly those at an entry level, are looking for career progression, and that's certainly very high on the list of what's you know, a list of priorities for employees. So it's about making sure that you set a path for those that you're looking to employ, even if the initial salary might not match what they're looking for. So long-term career opportunities. And then I think it's really important to reflect what you just said there, Claire, about the work-life balance, making sure that employees understand some of the wider, you know, flexible working policies perhaps that are in place, looking at some of the other, you know, areas in which you're able to offer value to an employer rather than simply just a salary. And I think you hit upon a really interesting point in your previous answer there as well, Claire, which is about the values and about the brand. And I think that's a big part of what the CIPR have been looking at this year, which is about social purpose. And I think if we look at social purpose, it's not just about what brand consumers or customers or stakeholders are looking to engage in, but it's also employees as well, because they're, of course, ambassadors for an organisation. And that doesn't just work for people that are working already within an organisation. That's very important. It's about the organisation that attracts, the organisation attracting people to come and work for them in the first place. So people know that there's a strong social purpose and a strong brand behind an organisation. I think that really does play a big part in being able to attract the right kind of people, and perhaps might be able to sway certain people from a short-term financial incentive in an organisation where they perhaps, you know that there isn't a huge amount of potential, or that the organisation itself isn't growing that much, to actually looking at organisations where they may not make it, an initial salary that they're looking for, but they certainly feel an affiliation with a brand that they can see heading in the right direction, they can see is probably going to be growing because of that brand and because of their social value that they bring into the workplace and into the market, and actually can see the longer term potential. So it's about the whole package. And I think, as I think a lot of our research shows, based on what you said, there are indicators to show that while salary is hugely important, people are looking for more than simply just the initial salary to actually help them make that decision.
Thank you, John. Actually, the next question, you've actually covered off some of this already, so that's great, because I was going to answer the next one, so thank you, John. The question was, with such acute skills shortages, what can employers do to attract candidates they need? Well, I think a lot of what John's just said actually would resonate in answer to this question. It's the whole piece around making sure that the brand value, that the employer proposition is clearly promoted when anybody, any potential talent, any potential professional actually has a reason to touch your brand. Whether that's looking for a job, whether they're just a passive candidate, interested in your brand and the values that you hold, and as you said, John, that the purpose of your brand. Lots and lots of marketing and comms candidates will talk to us about the opportunities they'd like to find in particular brands because they agree with the ethos, the brand values. But if they can't find this information on the website when they're actually having a look for potential opportunities, we have found this is where there becomes a challenge. So the first thing I would say about attracting those candidates with the skill shortages, make it easy for them. A vast percentage of candidates have said to us that actually if the process takes longer than 15 minutes to fill out an application form, they simply don't do it. And I'll get the percentages to you if anybody's interested, but they were from the What Workers Want report. And it also said that actually, I think it was 50–60% of candidates said, if it takes me longer than 15 minutes to actually fill out a form or to try and apply for the job with this brand, I won't do it. Whereas over 2/3 of employers said, actually, yeah, we know it takes more than 15 minutes to fill out a form on our website. So already you've got this position where the great quality candidates just won't do it if it takes that long. Equally, I think what candidates want to do, potential employees, is they want to be able to have a look at online, obviously, but then they want to talk to somebody. And we found there's a great disparity between candidates who are able to actually have a conversation with the business. Maybe there isn't an actual job, but a conversation with the business about potential opportunities. So there are just a couple of things there that one can look at. What is the experience? What is the experience that the potential candidates having when they actually touch your brand, particularly online? And I think that creating a strong employer brand can really help the organisation to stand out from the competition. And then, of course, with a strong employer brand, you're going to appeal to a wider audience of these prospective candidates that may not actually actively be looking, but because they like what they see, because they feel in tune with your brand, may actually be tempted to apply on spec. Equally.
Claire, could I, I'm sorry, I was going to just ask if I could touch on another point on that skills shortage question, but do you want to finish your point first?
No, that's fine. No. Join the conversation, John.
Thanks. I was just going to say, actually, one area that is quite interesting is that, certainly conversations that we've had, is that it's not always the most important thing when recruiting someone, particularly at junior level, to focus too much on the skills that they may or may not have. Obviously, that's important, but it's equally as important to find the right kind of candidates based on their their ambition, what they're like with other people, and a whole other series of skills, whether they be soft skills or hard skills. I think what's really important here is for organisations as well, this kind of links into the above question too, and offering candidates roles, even if the salary isn't particularly high, is to ensure that you put continuous professional development into the work plan of anyone coming into the organisation. So it's about saying to them, listen, you might be coming in here with the not necessarily the full skills that might be required, but we know that we can teach you those, and we know that there are people out there that can advise you on how to do that better. Actually, if you get the right candidate in that's willing to learn and willing to sort of get involved in continuous professional development, whether that's a form of CPD, which the CRPR offer, or just sort of making sure that training opportunities are available in-house or otherwise, I think is really key here. So I wouldn't be too put off by finding a CV with with a significant lack of skills. That can certainly be taught. There are other areas which, of course, are equally important, I would say, to focus on.
Thank you, John. Well, if there are any further questions, I think we hopefully have covered in those three questions a large conversation piece, I suppose, around the skills shortage and around what matters, I suppose, to marketing and comms professionals. And this wanting to feel akin to their brand is clearly going to be the case, I guess, because of the work that we do in this kind of profession. But actually, I think, as you said, that sense of purpose, constantly thinking about well-being, work-life balance. I think that marketing and comms candidates are increasingly wanting to be really involved in what a business is all about. And I genuinely think marketing sits at the core of the sort of strategic centre of a business. And indeed, if marketing comms are the voice of the consumer, then that's a really important place for us to be. And we constantly need to make sure that we are upskilling ourselves so that we can find the great opportunities for ourselves. But also, I genuinely believe if you find the right person, the right job, you fundamentally change their life, and you fundamentally change the business that you place them with, and they can add great value. So thank you to everybody who actually joined the webinar today. I hope you found it useful and some insight to ponder. John and I are happy to take individual emails from you if you want to either link in with us on LinkedIn or use your contacts at Hayes. I'd be happy to come and discuss the salary survey with you. Really happy to come and discuss the What Workers Want report as well, because I find that fascinating about what makes us as marketing and professionals tick these days, and what we're looking for and what we're looking for in our work and our life balance. I'd like to extend my thanks again to you, John. Thank you so much. I think it's a really interesting piece, and I think this whole gender pay piece is just going to diversity and inclusion are huge topics, and hugely important topics that we need to keep alive.
Well,
if you'd like to have a copy of the guide, please speak to, as I say, your usual contact, or please contact the person who sent you out the invite, or complete the form on our website, and we can come and drop your copy down. Thank you once again. Lord knows what's going to happen this week with Brexit, but I think we just, as marketing comms professionals, we keep focused, we keep looking forward, and hopefully the man in the red suit will bring us lots of excitement in the next few weeks. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to speaking to many of you in the future. Thanks.